Roger, I want to ask you about an article that you wrote that we published not long ago in the New Atlantis on another subject. It's called Scientism in the Arts and the Humanities. Now, people know what science is. Could you explain the term scientism?
Yes, science actually is harder to explain than scientism, but I assume that we have the idea of scientific method as a method whereby we advance towards the explanation of things through collecting data and experiment, through trial and error, through forming hypotheses and so on. And I think we're all familiar with this method in one form or another, although it's very difficult to put in words exactly what it consists in. But scientism, in my understanding, is the pretense of scientific method when addressing questions which are not themselves scientific. They're not questions about the nature of physical reality or how you explain the phenomena or the data that you collect. Now, there are plenty of such questions, as we know. I mean, the question, what should I do in a dilemma, is quite obviously not a scientific question. I don't solve it by consulting any theory. I ask myself what would be the right thing to do, and I perhaps enter into dialogue with others who give me advice. So that's a very simple example of a non-moral question, a non-scientific question, because it's moral. But there are a lot of other questions which we don't immediately think to be scientific, but we hope that maybe there'll be a science that will answer them for us. For instance, the question of, what is the meaning of Michelangelo's David? That incredible lump of stone in which so much strength seems to be concentrated in one little part of it, and that incredible concentration in the face. So, we all know that this is a very meaningful thing, but we haven't got any clear method for understanding exactly how we find that meaning. So people come along with pseudo-scientific theories, like structuralism or something, say that the meaning of it is embedded in its structure, and here are the principles, which look like some form of computer code, whereby we extract from the appearance of the sculpture its meaning for us. And I think in the arts there are a lot of such attempts to impose scientific categories on questions that are not themselves scientific.
There's surely some space for the empirical to inform our understanding of questions that are ethical or of our understanding of the arts and the humanities. But how do we know where we ought to limit the use of empirical or of scientific approaches to these kinds of questions? Where should we draw lines?
Well, obviously in the humanities, as the name suggests, we need information about what human beings are. That's part of our data, and what their choices and their preferences are. But we also need to know how to argue about those choices and preferences, how to discover the human significance of things. That's where the temptation exists to, as it were, reach out for some ready-made science which will tell us, without doing the exploration that we need to do of our own states of mind. What is it that I feel towards this? How would I put that into words? How would I justify it to you? And how would I respond to your counter account of it?
So I'd welcome viewers to read this article, Scientism in the Arts and the Humanities, which concludes with, among other things, a lovely takedown of meme theory, which you really kind of take to task for it being an example of the kind of scientism and overreach of the scientific method.